Welcome to this episode of Be Your Greatest Asset podcast, which is for mums in business to showcase all of your amazing talents, wisdom, gifts with other women and help them feel empowered to and inspired to prioritize your own well-being. I'm very passionate about that. And today I'm really pleased to have Katharina joining us from Heiter. And today we're going to be talking about running a Heiter, which is German for the word joyful, business, which is so applicable and appropriate for us mums in business. So Katharina, would you like to introduce yourself and share a bit about yourself?
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me, Michelle. I'm really pleased to be today. Thanks for inviting me. As Michelle already mentioned, my name is Katharina. I run Heiter. Heiter is a print publication. Heiter is all about finding joy in everyday life. That is where the name comes in. I want to feel Heiter. I want to feel cheerful, joyful in my life, but also in the work I do. And that's the biggest approach of Heiter. You can see it in the background. I also share quite a lot about how I work with Heiter, why I founded Heiter, and I think it is applicable for all mums in business, really. And that's also why Michelle and I connected, really, because we both want to be Heiter joyful.
Yeah, what's the point in living? What's the point in living if we can't be joyful along the way? It's very important. So how you mentioned how Heiter came about, how did the name Heiter come about for you?
Yeah, well, it actually started before I became a mum, but I think that's really important for the story. And if you look at Heiter today, how it all started, why it is what it is today. So back in 2016, I still worked for a massive company, one of the biggest fashion luxury retailers in the world. I also went to university and my life was really nonstop. While I worked in London, we lived outside of London, so I had quite a big commute that probably played in with that as well. Our living situation was not great. And I worked, and I wanted to succeed, and I wanted everyone to think that whatever I do, that I do it well. I wanted to meet other people's expectations, no matter if it was my boss at work or my tutors at university. I just wanted to do well. But as you can imagine, if one, or in my case, because I only worked, things started to break. Well, I started to break. I started to become really unwell from a mental point of view, but also physically. From one day to the next, I couldn't write anymore, which was really traumatic because I was in a writing job. And also for university, as you can remember, probably there are a lot of projects. You have to hand in projects. You have to write a lot about your projects, and I couldn't do any of it anymore. And
putting unrealistic expectations on yourself.
Totally.
You wanted everybody to think how amazing you were, which you are, of course. But you've diversified now in your approach, haven't you? Which is what this is about.
I took it a little bit too far, and it took me a while to accept it, that I had to step back, and it also took me a while to realize that I was the only one who could get myself out of that, because I was just really devastated. And what I learned from it is that I had to look after myself again, and I had to make sure I was better. And at that point in my life, it meant looking for those small joys in everyday life. And it was things like taking myself out for coffee without worrying about work, going for a walk without worrying about work, buying myself flowers, immersing myself in a creative activity, things I hadn't done for a really long time, just because all I wanted to do, or because I thought all I had to do was work. And then little by little, I got better.
Amazing. Empowering story, and thank you for sharing that with us. And what was the turning point for you when you decided, right, actually I need to take responsibility here? What was that moment? Can you remember?
The exact moment I can remember, I was actually in the middle of a panic attack. I was that unwell and that devastated. And I don't know, it felt like something maybe not someone else, or maybe it was within me, like listening to my own intuition. Something told me that I had to get back up again and try to be better. And I can remember that situation. I was lying on the bathroom floor crying, and then there was this sudden urge to get back up and to do something for myself.
Something in you, some inner wisdom just
Yeah.
came to life. And I share a very similar story to that. Like when we were doing our house renovations, and I walked in one day, there was brick dust everywhere. My children had just been to the dentist, they needed feeding. I didn't have a kitchen to use. My husband was at a wedding, which I chose not to go to because I knew it was a busy day. And I just walked in and I just collapsed in a heap on the floor. And at that moment, we had the planning officers turning up, knocking on the door. We had the neighbour moaning about the planning officer parking outside his house. And it just literally just too much. And I was like, I have to build myself back up now. So very similar, very aligned stories we have, but very different circumstances. So it's amazing that we've come together on this journey to find joy in life. It's incredible. So how has Heiter evolved ever since?
Well, obviously after I had that learning that finding small joys can help, I was very inspired, and I wanted to share that new knowledge with other people. And then I had the idea to create a magazine around it, or to share my moments of joy on Instagram at first. I also had a blog, and those were the beginning steps. And then I evolved, I got older. My values shifted, particularly in my early 30s. I must mention that when I ran the blog and already shared on social media, I still worked in the fashion industry. And it was a very exciting time, and there are still parts that really excite me about it. But I could tell in my early 30s that I didn't support everything that happened within the industry anymore. Like I couldn't support the impact it had on the environment anymore, or, there were clearly signs that things happened in the background, not maybe at my end, but up until clothes arrived where I worked, there was a lot of you could just see that people who had worked on those clothes were not unwell. I literally saw blood stains on some fashion items, and for me that was just too much, and I didn't want to support it any longer. But maybe at that point I wasn't brave yet enough to just focus on Heiter. It went then on, when I had my first son, I have one son, one daughter. When I had my first kid,
oh, you frozen.
Eve.
I didn't hear that. You froze then. Sorry. Say that again. So one daughter, one son.
And it was only when I had my son that I was brave enough to say, okay, I'm going to leave that part of my life behind, and I'm going to focus on Heiter, and I'm going to see what happens. And at that,
I was going to say, and how did that come about, that decision? Like what was the trigger then for you suddenly, not suddenly a mum, but you become a mum?
Yes.
Did you decide that all your values changed again?
Yes, or maybe they were emphasized in a way, because obviously I want my children to live in a better world, and obviously we never know where the world will go. But I think becoming a mum and trying to protect your kid is it was like something was pulling me, like that I had to really go for it and live by my values, and not support somebody else's values anymore, if that makes sense.
Yeah, perfect sense. This is incredible, and this is one of the reasons I want to share this podcast and this series, and share other women's stories, because it's so important that we are familiar, we commit to our own values, that we really connect with them, so we can teach our children as well these values, and teach them a better way in the world, and make the world a better place for everybody. And it's just so lovely that I've connected with people, like-minded people who want to do the same. I felt quite alone to start with, And then you realize that actually there are so many powerful, empowering, inspiring women like yourself and all the other women I've spoken to who just want to make a massive difference. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's not a lonely journey anymore.
No, it really isn't.
Yeah,
And I think what's also part of that is I also want my kids to see that they can actually live their dreams. And that is where the next step for Heiter came in. I've always wanted to work for a print publication, if not run my own print publication. And I really felt like the content that was there with Heiter already would make up a really, really lovely magazine. A
and it
magazine
did.
and out amongst others. Yeah. A magazine that also reflects my values, that's 100% sustainable. And yeah, a magazine that is not just thrown out after someone has read it, a magazine that stays on the coffee table, and whenever people feel down, they can go back, pick it up, and find something in it and get inspired. Yeah.
Love it. And you've done it, and you're aiming to do it again, aren't you? Edition
Yeah.
2. So
Edition 2 is coming out in early 2024. Well, I had a second kid a year ago, and I was on parental leave for the whole year, and now I'm slowly getting back into work. And yes, the second magazine will be out in January.
oh, amazing. Oh, I can't wait to see. Wait to see it. So how can you build or run a business that is joyful and that is joyful as a business owner and as a mum, and also staying true to your own values?
Well, there are different ways, but I think the first thing one could do is check in with oneself. Obviously, when we're out there, especially if we're solopreneurs, we have all those business courses. There's so many coaches out there. There's some really valuable advice, well, even on social media. And I think especially if you work for yourself and you don't have the manpower and you don't have enough time because you also have a family, you can get easily overwhelmed. Yeah. But first of all, I want to tell everyone, don't panic. You don't have to do it all.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That was a hard lesson to learn.
A very hard lesson, yes, because of course, if you constantly hear, I don't know, trying all that social media stuff,
And I should be doing this, and
yes,
and
it
what
can help.
and what will they think of me if I don't do this, or if I do this, or
Yeah, but it is not about the other people. So again, don't panic, stop, and then listen to yourself. And first of all, think about what feels right, what marketing strategy suits me, what marketing strategy is in line with, first of all, my values, but also my interests and my skills. Because it could be that, I don't know, you really love talking to the camera, but then Reels is perhaps not is maybe a little bit too bubbly for what you want to represent with your business. I think that's just really important to check what works for me and for what I stand for.
And how do you work out what actually works for you when everyone's telling you, do this, do that, try this, try that, this is the new, even Threads, for example. Oh, you've got to get on Threads. Well, I lasted a day on Threads.
Obviously, people are different, but I think in my case, how I do it, I simply listen to my gut. And well, what we do together, Michelle is also part of the Heiter Society. That's another part of the Heiter brand, a membership. We regularly have Heiter business sessions where we chat about what feels right, and we also journal about them. And journaling, I think, is a great way of bringing whatever you feel, even if you don't understand it straight away, you bring it to paper. And then often when you look at it or you talk about it with other people, you do have a learning from it, and you know if it's the right thing or not.
Yeah, and it's also a beautiful, beautiful record of how far you've come. When you actually look back and you feel like you haven't achieved anything, you're like, wow, that's what I was thinking a few, months ago, whatever, and now look where I am. It's powerful. But yeah, I mean, I really believe in what you're talking about, this joyful marketing, because we did do a session together on joyful marketing and marking my different values out of 10, wasn't it? And then and from that, I realize how much I love connecting with people and making friends with people. And
Yeah,
that is the reason, or one of the main reasons, that this podcast has come about, is me, connecting with lots of different women, making loads of friends all around the world, and yeah, sharing these well-being tips for, all parts of life. So
makes me so happy, Michelle.
joyful. Heiter.
Yeah, yeah. And just two other things I just remembered, that also has to do with the overwhelming yourself. Be honest, how much can you actually do? And that works for me, but I always have that rule. I never pick more um, than 3 to 5 marketing strategies that I want to do for myself. And that also means those strategies can change because you change as a person. And I think that regularly checking in with yourself if the things you're doing are still in line with what you want to achieve and what you want to stand for again. Yeah, that's absolutely allowed. You're allowed to stop. You're allowed to change. Your business is allowed to change.
Yeah.
You're the biggest asset to your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, make business work for you. You don't work for the business.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's such an important thing to remember in life, is that change is the only constant in life. Everything's changing around us all the time and it's out of our control. So why not change with the rest of the world? And as long as it's still with your values and you're changing in a way that, really aligns with you, then yeah, definitely do it. Keep it as joyful as possible. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you fail. It means that you've learned
Mm.
something.
Yeah.
Always learning. So yeah. And it can be very, very overwhelming, can't it? Like the amount of things that we feel like we have on our plate and we should be doing. So sticking to those 3 to 5 things is really good advice, just to keep us focused as well. And actually that we're more likely to take action in
Mm.
business. And then when we take action and we get the results, it makes us even more joyful.
Sure.
So it's just like, then it's like a perpetual, motion, like exponential success, because we're getting more and more
Yeah.
joyful in life. So yeah.
Yeah, that you might get more time with your family as well,
Yeah.
which I think can easily happen if you're solopreneur or small business owner. Obviously, you have a lot of hats to wear, but it is important to keep that balance, because in the end, well, I know it's in your case, also in my case, in the end, we do it for our families.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. And yeah, that was a hard lesson as well, learning that, like I was so passionate about my business that my family were almost answering to that. And I realized that I was missing out on stuff because I was so focused on work, feeling so overwhelmed, like, but I must do this, I must do that, I need to get this done. But I was completely missing the point, because actually I was doing it for the family, for the flexibility for the family, and it wasn't working. It was completely mismatched. So yeah, that's a good lesson. We've got the balance, the work-life balance, creating time for yourself. I mean, that's my bag. I love, that's what I teach, which is amazing. And have you got an exercise, or what's a really good exercise or technique that people can actually do, our listeners can do?
Yeah, I already mentioned the journaling that people could
Yeah.
do. So I can pull up an exercise we've done again in the Heiter Society before. You can ask yourself questions. I will only pick 3 out of the exercise now, because I know we don't have that much time. But first of all, I would really sit down and look back at what I already mentioned earlier. Well, at first, I would probably start off with, what marketing tools do you already use, or what marketing activities do you already use? Make a list, and then maybe make a second list saying with what marketing activities do really feel good, and then compare, and that already gives you an idea of what could perhaps go, what doesn't serve you any longer. And then you could also sit down and write down, what are my values, and double check, okay, what of the ones that I really enjoy reflect those values. And then if you wanted to do more, you could also sit down and write down, okay, what are those skills, what are my interests that were mentioned. There was the question Michelle meant earlier. That was how she figured out that podcasting could perhaps be a marketing activity for her.
Yeah.
And if there are lots of activities written down, of course, that's still great. But you can then sit down and rate them and see, okay, what feels most like me, what's something I really want to do, and then look at those last 3 to 5, and those are the ones you can work with. Yeah,
that's how you get your 3 to 5 strategies, and it works. It really does work, because that, yes, as Katharina said, that's what you guided me through a few months ago. That's really lit up my business in some different ways. So that's amazing. What else would you like to share with us about joyful living? So we've got some other activities maybe that are really Heiter. You've mentioned buying flowers, walking, and things. And how often do you recommend we integrate them into our lives, into our daily lives?
Well, I think it really depends on your life and how many pockets of time do you have for that. Maybe I'll take myself as example. Well, I have 2 little kids. My boy is now 3. My daughter turned 1 yesterday. And life is very hectic, as you can imagine. I don't know about you, Michelle, but before I had my second kid, everyone, or a lot of people told me, you don't really notice the second kid. Well, I definitely noticed the second kid. It changed quite a lot, and my life got way more exciting in a good way, but it is also harder to go through my to-do list. So what I've learned is, well, yeah, just to look at what I've got, and also to maybe lower my expectations. Sounds perhaps a little bit negative, but I try to appreciate every little thing. I think I've told that story before. I know you know it, Michelle, but before I had kids, one of the joyful moments I always had for myself was taking myself out for coffee. Yes. Yeah. Then I had my first kid. Then the second joyful, I had to change that a little bit already. I loved having coffee by myself when my son was at daycare, and now with 2 kids and the little one being with me full time, now I just say that my joyful coffee moment is when my husband brings me coffee to bed in the morning.
Nice. Yes.
Again, it is very personal, but if you're someone who perhaps drives your kids to school, and you're also someone who enjoys audiobooks or podcasts, maybe there's a way that you can already start listening to that audiobook or podcast on the way back from school. Because I understand if you go to school, you probably want to chat to them or they want to chat to you. But yeah, I would just see what the situation is and just try to integrate those small little things. Yeah.
And it is easier, it is easy than you think, easier than you think to do that. We think, oh my gosh, we haven't got time, and we have to put the kids first, and we need to feed the cats before we do the yoga, we need to do whatever, rush out the door to get the kids to school, feed the baby, do this, put washing on, There is always time for you.
Yeah.
But the thing is that we have to learn to set the intention to do it and actually make it happen for ourselves. It like you've said, you took responsibility for picking yourself back up. I did the same, and we've both evolved ever since. And I believe that we constantly grow, we continuously evolve all the way through life, that we should never stay still, because that's where we stagnate. So it's easier to add these little moments of joy. It can easily be done. And it doesn't have to be. I think we've got this thing that it has to be, oh well, I haven't got time to go to yoga class for an hour, or I haven't got the money to go for a massage, I haven't got the time to go and meet my friend for coffee, for example, or whatever. But it can literally be that moment as you take your first sip of coffee as you're sat in bed. It's that simple. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and what I also wanted to mention, again, it's my own example. Sometimes, well, in my case, and that also is or comes in that place too. Sometimes you have to be a little bit selfish. So for me, that meant founding the Heiter Society. Because a big part of why I wasn't that joyful with my business anymore after having my second kid was that I felt really lonely. Well, because I already struggled a lot with being there for my kid, and then I also felt like, oh, I should still work, and it didn't feel just right. So I created something that brought me connection. I also know that I really enjoy creative activities. So again, I took that on board, added that to the connection. And then, well, my business part, there was also something where I felt like I could perhaps enjoy it a little bit more if there was someone I could share my experiences with. So what I did is I founded the Heiter Society, a membership where people can connect. Again, Michelle is a member already. And
I love it. Made so many friends through it.
Oh, me too. It really is a lovely place. And well, what comes with the societies are workshops and get-togethers and co-working sessions, and that was exactly what I needed at that point, and I still need, and it still brings me joy. And there are fixed dates in my diary, and those dates, they force me to show up online and be joyful. So yeah, for me that was a really, really great excuse to introduce it and to make sure that my business still feels joyful.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's brilliant to make it work for you, and just find a way to really bring your passions to life.
Yeah,
To meet the needs of your business and family life, and it's so doable, as you're highlighting. You mentioned that it was selfish, like for selfish reasons. But
yeah.
she doesn't really mean selfish, do you? It's like it's the well-being, your well-being, your self-care is never ever selfish. My personal feeling is that it's more selfish not to do the things that really light you up, because otherwise your family they end up with a grumpy mum, grumpy wife or partner, stressed to the max, overwhelmed, and running around like a headless chicken. So yes, definitely not ever selfish.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I love it. Oh, amazing. So thank you so much for bringing this to us, all of this inspiration to live a more joyful life and business, and be a more joyful mum along the way as well, which is the first thing, really, I should say. Be a joyful mum while running a business joyfully.
Yeah. It usually makes a joyful family too.
Yeah, absolutely. Much more harmonious household as well. And yeah, beautiful. And so I know that you've got a very special gift for our listeners today. Would you like to share?
Yes. It's also society related. I thought, because many of the listeners are in a similar boat to Michelle and I, we're both moms, solopreneurs, and we do miss that bit of connection sometimes on the business advice, or doing a mindful activity. And that is why I thought I'd offer all listeners a 20% discount for their first monthly fee or monthly payment for the Heiter Society. Yeah, Michelle has the discount code, and she will share it in the show notes with you guys. And if that's something you're interested in, there's an overview on the Heiter website, what's all included in a monthly society subscription. And you can just go on the Heiter website, order it at the discount code in the basket, and then you can redeem your special gift.
Thank you very much. That's beautiful, and I highly, highly recommend investigating this option, this special gift for you, because it really has been a game changer for me in my business. I work from home. Yes, I work with my clients, but to be in a space with people who where I'm not always holding space for other people, to actually, just be in a space of like-minded, like-hearted women in business who just want to connect and do good things in the world with their business, using their business as a catalyst. So yeah, it's a beautiful space to hang out. So go have a look.
Thank you. And Michelle, I must say, I'm so glad that you're a member. You add so much goodness to the society. I really don't think it'd be the same without you.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, bless you. Do you have any last words of wisdom for our listeners today, based on anything that we've talked about, or anything else you want to? How to make a good coffee in bed? Get your husband to do it.
Husband to do it. Yes, that's a good one. What I would say is, be yourself. Listen to yourself. Be authentic and be kind, and then the rest will come.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful words. Be authentic. Be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Be true to you, because that's all you can be. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank Thank you for
Pleasure
having me.
chatting to you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.